Hey, everybody, it's Jean Chatzky. Welcome to our Wednesday Live, sponsored by the Alliance for Lifetime Income. Very happy to be here with all of you today. Our guest, it looks like we have two guests, actually. Our guest is Lauren Young. Lauren is the money editor at Reuters, where she is developing personal finance, wealth management, and investing coverage for professional and consumer audiences. She spent a lot of her career at Business Week, but before then, she and I worked together for many years at Smart Money, where
dearly departed Smart Money,
the dearly departed Smart Money, where we wrote a lot of good stories, but also had a really, really great time. We are excited to be here with all of you, diving into a conversation about your money in the time of COVID. We are happy, as always, to take your questions. Let us know that you're here. Let us know that you're with us, and let's kick it off.
And tell us where you're joining from, because I love to see the geographical diversity of everybody.
Absolutely. So, Lauren, I think one of the themes that I have seen running through your content, and I know through my own, is that in this time of COVID, when so much is uncontrollable, you're best off if you control what you can control.
It's absolutely right. I mean, the uncertainties are so vast. And I was actually just reading, I know that you've done, I think, some work with the Cleveland Clinic. I just was reading their tip list today just about how people are feeling right now, and it's control what you can control. You know, if it's financial, you know the bills that you have, what you can pay, what you may not be able to afford to pay, and think about it. Just setting a regular schedule for exercise, which, as we know, like physical fitness and physical fitness, hand in hand, if you feel good, helps a lot. So all of these things, just, take a deep breath and do what you can. And there are things that are uncertain, and we just don't know where the market's headed. Although today we may be hitting a new high, which is crazy to me, makes no sense. But just do what you can do and stay the course.
Okay. All right. Absolutely. I'm going to ask if you have a pair of headphones that you can put on while we're actually talking. I'll hold it here for a second. Do you?
Yes. I'm going to ask my technical expert. Jonathan, do you mind getting me headphones?
That would be great. Thank you.
They're in my gym bag, and I got to pair them to my Bluetooth, so I apologize.
Okay. No, that's fantastic. We're getting a lot of people joining us from everywhere, from Phoenix, Boston, Chesapeake, Virginia, Wisconsin. That's where I come from, one of the places.
West Virginia, Jean?
Well, there too. Pennsylvania, Dallas, all over, Washington, Minnesota, Philadelphia, Florida, DC, Brazil. You get the award for coming the furthest, Colorado. So terrific to see all of you here today. And as Lauren plugs in, I actually think that one of the things that we're going to do here today is to try to take this by age and give some recommendations. Madison, Wisconsin, that is where I'm from. Give some recommendations for how we can get ourselves on course or keep ourselves on course if we are in a particular age cohort. So
technologically, first, let's make sure I'm on course. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you totally fine, and I'm getting the thumbs up from Giovanna, who was the first one to let us know about the echoes, so we are good.
Perfect, and now the dog is sitting on my lap, so this is even better.
Excellent.
Generation Z is what we're calling it now. Remember Generation Z? They're Generation Z. This is the generation that is literally coming of age in the time of COVID. Dog is leaving now. They are going to school remotely. They are really living their lives online in a way that no other generation has. I think they can make a lot of the opportunities, remote work, doing tutoring, whatever it is. I think that they will feel so much more comfortable than other generations in terms of just spending your whole life on Zoom. or whatever, Facebook Live, whatever platform it is.
Does Generation C have an age, or does it encompass all of us because we're all doing this, or is it
it's
Gen Z and millennials?
It's the younger than millennials. So millennials are like now what, 20 and 20, 24. You know, it depends on how you do the cutoff.
Yeah, they could be a little older, but yeah, absolutely. With Gen Z, a little bit younger.
The kids that are school age, high school, and just entering college are on the cusp of millennial and Gen Z.
So from a financial perspective, these kids, I think, share a lot with the folks who came out of school in the time of the Great Recession. Jobs are not plentiful. Opportunities are scary. How
babysitting gigs, Jean's like, I babysat when I was that age, and I'm assuming that you did too, because you seem like you'd be a good babysitter. That's not an option for everybody right now.
Right. So when you are thinking, all right, I am home, I am learning remotely, I would like to make some money, I would like to save some money, maybe I'd even like to put some money into a Roth IRA to get a start on my future. What are your tips for members of this generation?
So make the most of your digital experience. There are coding, learn a language online. Obviously I don't want you to spend all of your days on screens because it's exhausting, but make the most of the opportunity and the time that is presented to you right now. And you mentioned the Roth IRA. I mean, talk about time. For somebody who invests in a Roth IRA right now, who is, a teenager, the power of compounding, just putting in $1,500 or, even $500 or $250 in 50 years from now, what that could compound to, it's immense. It's Einstein, right, who said the power of compounding. I mean, everything. It's so beautiful.
When you get a little bit older, when you are a member of Gen X, and you are, again, you're facing what should be the years where you're socking a ton of money into retirement, but perhaps you have taken a step back because of COVID. Perhaps you've been laid off or furloughed. You're trying to figure out how to get yourself back on track. What does somebody in that scenario do?
Well, first of all, I think there is some good news out there because the market is still going up. If you are saving for retirement, if you're somebody who works for a company, we've seen that company matches haven't been dialed back yet. And I just saw some data from Fidelity. Let me just pull this up. Only 11% of employers have suspended their matches in the second quarter, and contributions are steady. People are actually increasing their IRA contributions right now. So that's good. Keep, if you can, stay the course. And even if you can't put the full amount in because you need the money to cover other things, even if you can just incrementally put a little bit in, even a quarter, it really makes a difference in the end, particularly if you still have 20 or 30 years left till retirement.
You made a really good point, actually, that people are not decreasing and some people are actually increasing their retirement contributions. I'm curious from...
Income rates are up, Jean. We just saw data, and let me just get up the number for you. For the first time since 2014, we've seen household debt decline, which is amazing. Even like overall credit card balances are down by $76 billion. People are saving money because they're not outspending it. And, there's just not as much temptation to spend if you're not in stores all the time or you're not spending money on entertainment. So it's really encouraging to me, and I hope it doesn't go away after all of this, that people will continue to save. And just one other thing about Gen Z, to get back to them for a second, they're going to be like depression babies, they're depression kids. They're going to have a very, very, very different outlook on money and spending, I think, because of this.
I hope that you're right about that. I expected much the same thing after 2008. And although we got a little pop in savings rate for a while, it didn't stick along as it didn't stick around as long as I would have hoped to see it. I'm curious for our audience, and of course, we're happy to answer your questions, but maybe you all can answer one for me. Do you find yourself spending a lot less money now, and what are you spending less on? It would be interesting to know if you're finding that you're able to put more into your emergency cushions and to put more in your retirement accounts. And
I'm waiting for the comments, Jean, but I have a feeling it's eating out. Consumer discretionary spend is where the biggest part of the pie where people are not spending right now.
Yeah, no, I think you're totally right. It's very hard to convince yourself that you need a new pair of shoes or a new dress or something like that when you have absolutely nowhere to go. I mean, this is
you're not traveling,
right.
So summer travel, all these people I know who had trips planned. I bumped into somebody on the street today who was planning a trip to Hawaii. So that's an expensive trip.
Yes.
So, that money is not being spent. So where is she? I didn't ask her if she was putting it towards her retirement. I'm sorry.
No, it's all good. All right. Talk to me about those people, the boomers, the people who are in retirement or right about to enter retirement. What's the game plan there?
This is so tricky because some people are being offered voluntary retirement. Some people are having to retire, like teachers, for example, who may not want to go back to the classroom and are really worried about their future and their health. So I feel like that of every cohort, that's the one that I'm the most worried about. I'm not really worried about the millennials. I'm not really worried about Gen Z, whatever you want to call it. And then Gen X, our generation, we're super resilient, obviously. But I am worried about people who are close to retirement, because if you step out of the workforce now, the money that you could have been saving for retirement, you now have to spend to live your life. And it's obviously this generation we know is going to live longer than the generation before it. You may not have enough to last. And
right.
That really, really worries me.
And so what do you do in the face of that? You're talking about a phenomenon that the Alliance for Lifetime Income actually documented. It's called the retirement reset, and it's those specific people who are feeling like I need to either reset my expectations or redo my plan.
And I think your second point is really important. You need a plan. You can't just wing this, folks. You've got to get help. You've got to plan. You've got to think about it. And really, you may not be able to stick to it exactly how things in life just doesn't happen that way. I think that as life happens, is that the slogan?
Yeah.
And it's true. Life happens. So you can't plan for a loved one falling sick or a child needing financial help, which we know, by the way, that this particular generation is more than any other generation helping adult children. The boomers are helping their Gen X and maybe even millennial children a lot financially. It may just be the credit card, the Netflix bill or the cell phone bill, but you've really got to take stock of where you're spending money, where it's coming from, because you've got a finite pot and you've got to make it last. So talk to a financial advisor. There are a ton of great resources out there to find an advisor. I happen to be a fan of certified financial planners because they don't have conflicts of interest, but a trusted person that can help you with an action plan.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you, because I mean, what we've seen is that when people do take the steps to shake up their plan, whether they are taking a step back from the workforce, whether they are shifting gears into a new job or a new career, whether they're downshifting their lifestyle in order to stretch their resources longer, knowing the steps to take really, really helps them. We had an interesting conversation with Ken Dykewald from AgeWave on this show a few weeks ago, and he did research that found that people are really resilient. Like we can make changes regarding our retirement. We will downshift. We will move to a smaller place to live. We will move somewhere where there are lower taxes, but doing it in a measured way with some sort of planning really seems to help.
So much better than being in that worst case scenario where you've got to be in crisis mode and make decisions, because that is where mistakes are made, expensive mistakes are made, and not being able to think things through, where you're going to live, or medical help, whatever it is, it can impact your wallet and your retirement nest egg in a giant way.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's been one of the interesting byproducts of this super fast shift into remote work. All of a sudden, we seem to have more choice in where we want to live, in what sort of taxes we're willing to pay, in whether or not we want to commute. And I don't know about you, but I'm starting to see people make those sorts of choices to go to less expensive homes where they might be able to pay lower taxes over the long term.
Yeah, and I think, obviously you make a lot of decisions financially are important, but remember that there is a value to the community that you have and being near friends and family too. So there's a cost benefit analysis. And I worry that people are also making those decisions without thinking all of those things through. I would rather, if you have the means to go and rent a place somewhere, try that market first, just to see if you really like it. Because I do know people that have uprooted their lives and gone places and then realized that they've made a terrible mistake.
Yeah. Well, I have watched, not my friends yet, but I did watch friends of my parents move to what they thought were the ideal retirement community, only to move back home a year later. So I'm with you when you talk about road testing it.
Yeah, please. We're talking about somebody who has the opportunity to do that. That's a real privilege to be able to try something like that. But if you can, do it.
When we talk about retirement, you mentioned the markets and how they have come back and that they are almost back to where they were when this began. But I also know that the volatility in the markets has been staggering and is enough to make people a little bit crazy. What is your advice for dealing with that?
So my advice is it's so funny. I'm a personal finance expert and I work for one of the biggest news organizations that covers business. And I honestly try not to look at things. Obviously I have to read headlines, but when things are really volatile, I know this sounds maybe counterintuitive, but I really try. I only check my accounts maybe quarterly. And when things are really volatile, I won't even look. So from March until just recently, I didn't look at anything. And then I just checked. Because nothing's going to change. I'm not making any changes. I'm mostly in target date funds anyway. Mm-hmm. I don't own individual stocks because of my job. So I can't do anything. So I don't know if that's, that's how I handle it. What do you do? I'm curious.
Yeah, very much the same. I mean, I at the beginning of COVID, I had
my colleagues.
I had CNBC on all the time. And I'm not a person who watches CNBC on a regular basis. Like usually I'm more of a news junkie. I'll watch the news. I couldn't take the news, so I turned to CNBC. I was watching that for a while. And it just made me really anxious, to tell you the truth. It made me really, really kind of unhappy. And so I turned it off. And I'm like you, I look at my accounts, but I don't look at them all that often. And I'm also, what this has made me realize is when it comes to my future, like a lot of people, I'm more conservative than I thought. I am a fan. I mean, this show is, as you know, it's sponsored by the Alliance for Lifetime Income. But long before I began working with them, I had written columns about the idea of taking a chunk of my nest egg as I entered retirement and using it to buy an immediate, simple annuity that would just make sure that my fixed expenses would be covered for as long as I live. So I was very, very early to that party.
That's early smart money talk there, Jean Jatzke.
But as this crisis has taken hold, we've seen in the research that a lot of people are feeling the same way, that we want protection on the downside, and that we want to know that no matter what happens, we'll have this paycheck. I mean, my mother is in retirement. She's been in retirement for quite some time, and she's really, really fortunate that although my father passed away years ago, she still has his pension. We don't have pensions anymore, so we kind of have to make our own pensions.
And what you said is that's something you can control. If you control what you can control, and if you can plan for your future in a very measured way and have that expectation that you're going to have that paycheck in retirement, that's puts you ahead of the game when you factor in Social Security and maybe other investments that you have. What a nice diversified pool to have to look forward to.
Yeah. A couple of specific questions for things that you mentioned earlier. You mentioned the savings rate. The savings rate has gone up. People are saving. They're clearly paying down some debt. Hopefully.
What are your readers, what are people saying that they're saving? Has anybody answered that question?
People said yes. Monica noted that she's spending less on clothes, work attire, and makeup. She hasn't worn lipstick in quite some time. Monica, I got to tell you, I put it on. I put it on for this Zoom and very, very little else. But I'd love to hear from some other people if you guys have questions, or if there are things that you've found that you're saving money on. I know I took a look at where my money is going just over the last couple of days. I went back and looked at my most recent months of expenses. I'm spending so much less on eating out, spending so much more on groceries because I'm cooking all the time. But the byproduct is definitely saving money on food overall. And I think that's probably a very big line item for a lot of people.
For us, because my husband is professional and he wears a shirt, a laundered shirt every day. We haven't gone to the dry cleaner.
Yeah.
Just a couple times. I mean, he will put them on for some Zoom calls, but he takes them right off. So I really feel for some of these small businesses, though, and it worries me. I want to support restaurants, and we are trying to take out, and so because we don't want them to go out of business. But the prediction is 1/3 of small businesses are not going to make it through this.
Yeah, it is so disheartening. When you think about people saving more money, I know a lot of that money is just sitting in cash. What should they be doing with it?
Well, okay, so there's cash and then there's real cash. As you know, there's actually a coin shortage right now. And I was looking the other day because I have one of those big jars of coins. I need to find a Coinstar because there's no way I'm going to be counting that myself. But in terms of cash, I'm a big fan of dollar cost averaging, which is just putting money into the market in increments. If you had, $1,000 in cash, or $500 in cash, or $10,000, whatever it is, I won't invest it all at one time. I just don't feel comfortable with that. I don't trust the market enough. But if you do things in increments and just divide, sorry, that's my child and my dog. I apologize. Fun time.
They're all welcome.
I miss the studio,
Yeah, absolutely.
Out of the office. So I would just have dollar cost averaging, have it sucked out of an account. That's what I do. That's all of my money is dollar. I don't ever invest anything at once. So.
Yeah. We've got Patricia says she's saving on Ubers. I just read this morning that Uber may have to close up in California if they are forced into treating drivers as employees. So we'll have to wait and see on that. Also on clothes. Maria is saving on gas and dry cleaning and working from home. You mentioned all these small businesses that have to close. Let's talk a little bit about unemployment. I mean, as we are 6 months into this crisis, what's unemployment looking like right now? And do you have any tips for people who are struggling with collecting unemployment?
Yes. Okay. First of all, unemployment right now is it's scary because we're above 10% nationwide, and there are people that aren't even reporting income. Like we know that actually in the last jobs data, so that was the July report.
Mm-hmm.
People were quitting jobs, which sounds like great. People are quitting jobs, they're getting other jobs, but they're quitting jobs because they can't get to their job, because they have childcare needs, or they're fearful for their health of other family members or their own health, or the other factors. And we've seen, because restaurants did open up, and that's a huge employer nationwide, that, there's definitely job shifting going on as economies open up or close. But I'm really, really worried about the jobs market and how people are going to survive. Now, there has been obviously a reduction as the stimulus ran out for people, the $600 that they were getting. Bless you, Jean. We have it all going on right now, really. If you're having problems and you're still not getting any unemployment benefits. And, at this point, I feel like a lot of people have figured out, particularly in the beginning of all this, it was just a nightmare to get through the red tape, get on the websites and get, but you have to be persistent. Call your local elected officials if you're having problems, because they may have resources to help you. You just can't sit and wait. You have to be proactive. You have to be an advocate for yourself right now. You just have to do the best you. Legal aid may be able to help you. There are a ton of resources nationwide, and you just go online, seek them out. I mean, be careful. Obviously, don't hand over all of your personal information to someone who says they're going to be able to help you get unemployment benefits. You want to, check them out a little bit, but don't just try the first rung of the ladder. You have to keep climbing and trying.
While people are laid off, you mentioned learning a language. What other tips for people who are at home and do have some time on their hands?
So I mentioned at the beginning of this conversation, coding. My son is taking a class online right now. It's a free one of these MOOC classes to learn a coding language, and he's 15 years old. But I think anyone who is willing to, there are a ton of great resources out there to learn programming, or digital upskilling is what they call it. If you're interested in that and you have the aptitude for it, I mean, we're all experts now, I guess, online and working remotely. Learning a language obviously could really benefit if you have that ear. LinkedIn, which is professional networking, and I guess you could say job site professional. They also offer a lot of coursework. I haven't tried any of them. I've reached out to a few friends that have. So it sounds like there's some interesting stuff out there, and certainly communities and network. I mean, just, use this time to reach out to people, informational interviews, talk to people, because you just never know when things change. To have that connection with somebody is so valuable. I spoke to a kid yesterday who's interviewing for a job today, so I'm really curious. I'm going to follow up with him after this to find out how it went, a recent graduate from USC. And he said he's just been doing a ton of informational interviews and just reaching out to everyone. And I admire his moxie. I mean, it's really hard. In some ways, being remote, people say it's really great for introverts. I mean, I'm not an introvert. I'm much more of an extroverted personality. But as we become more comfortable, and certainly the one-on-one aspect of it, sometimes sitting here and you're in the comfort of your own home gives you an ability to reach out to people that you might not have been able to do it just sitting at your desk.
I think you're so right. Huda pointed out that she's a nurse and nothing changed for her. She actually worked overtime in May. When people asked me through the years, what job is going to give me the most security? I always have said be a nurse. I may now start saying be a coder. My daughter-in-law took a boot camp. She was in a job that it was not for her. And she took a 6-month boot camp and tripled her salary with multiple job offers. I think especially now with all of this remote work, coding is just the way of the future.
I actually think graphic design for people who are artistic and haven't gone that route before, because everything is digital, having the skills to be able to present graphically is
Yes.
incredibly valuable right now. And the other thing I was thinking of was even just being able to teach online is super valuable.
Yep. No question at all. Lauren, this has just been
having that the experience to be able to tutor or to talk to people, because learning is changing, and to be in on the ground floor of figuring out how to do that, I think is a really great skill if you're somebody who likes kids or likes to teach.
This has been so much fun for me to have this conversation with you. Where can we go? First of all, everybody should follow Lauren on Twitter because...
Wait, quickly. Social media skills. We're all sitting here. Build your brand right now. LinkedIn, Twitter, you're going to say, I don't actually, my Instagram's private, but you're saying I'm good to follow on Twitter, but you should be, people, push out content that's interesting, that you care about, build communities on social media. That is an incredibly valuable skill.
Absolutely. And we're getting, people are saying teaching online is huge. And Linda watched tutorial videos on haircuts and now cuts her son's and her husband's hair. You are a brave woman, Linda. Lauren, where can we find more about you?
So on Reuters, I work at Reuters, www.reuters.com. If you go to our homepage, you'll see there's a wealth section over there. I also oversee our World at Work section, which you'll find on the business tab. And I write a lot about, or edit a lot of workplace coverage, which is why I'm so passionate about it. And then on Twitter, I'm at Lauren Young, and please follow me. Find a lot of information about dogs and sunshine.
She takes great pictures and she's very entertaining. So follow Lauren. And for the rest of you who are looking for more information, please go to protectedincome.org. You'll find a list of questions to ask a financial planner, and you can also take a quiz to figure out how your risk is situated for retirement.
That list is great. Print it out. It is very, very valuable.
And we will see you next week. Thanks so much. Bye.